God is about to reveal the real you. Don't you dare give up now. If you are seeing this word right now, I need you to stop scrolling for just a second, because this is not a coincidence. Out of everything you could have been watching tonight, you landed here, and I don't believe that's random. God is about to reveal something to you in the next few months that your eyes have not seen, your ears have not heard, and it has not even entered into your heart what He has been working on behind the scenes of your life. And I'm telling you, this is going to shock some of you, because you have been putting in the work quietly, faithfully, without applause, without recognition, and you have not seen the fruit of it yet. But that is about to change. Before I go any further, I want you to get in a position where you can actually receive this. Not just hear it, receive it. Put down whatever you're holding for a second. Take a breath. Because some of you have been so busy surviving the day that you haven't had a moment to actually let anything sink past your ears and down into your spirit. Tonight I want it to sink in. I want this word to land somewhere deep in the part of you that's been asking, quietly, whether anybody up there still sees what you're going through. They do. He does. And what I'm about to share with you isn't just encouragement. It's a word. There's a difference. Encouragement makes you feel better for a moment. A word from God shifts something. It plants something. It moves something in the spirit realm before it ever shows up in your circumstances. So I need you to receive this, not just listen to it. God gave me a word for somebody today, and I need you to receive it. The Bible says in Romans chapter 8, verse 18, I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Somebody type revealed in the comments right now. Because that's the key word, revealed, not created, not started, revealed. Which means it is already there, it is already working, it just has not been shown yet. And that's what makes this season so hard for some of you, because you can feel that something is different in you, but you can't point to it yet. You can't prove it yet. You just know you're not who you used to be. Verse 19 says all creation is waiting eagerly for that future day when God will reveal who His children really are. Read that again. There is coming a day, and I believe for some of you it is closer than you think, when the people who counted you out are going to have to sit with the fact that they were wrong about you. The people who talked about you when your name came up in a room you weren't in. The people who threw you away, who slandered you, who said you would never amount to anything, who watched you go through your hardest season and decided that was who you were forever. God is saying, there's a day coming where they're going to look at you and say, this cannot be the same person I knew 10 years ago. I want you to think about the specific people who wrote you off. Maybe it was a parent who said you'd never be responsible enough. Maybe it was an ex who told you nobody else would ever want you the way you are. Maybe it was a boss, a friend, a sibling, somebody in church, somebody who watched your worst season and decided that was your permanent address. I want you to know God is not offended by their opinion of you, and He is not intimidated by it either. He's already planning the day they eat those words, not so you can gloat, it's not the heart behind it, but so that even they will have to acknowledge that something bigger than human effort was at work in you. And listen, this isn't about proving people wrong for the sake of your ego. It never was. It's about God being glorified through a life that looked finished and wasn't. That's what makes your comeback different from a worldly comeback. A worldly comeback says, look what I did. A God comeback says, look what He did in spite of what I couldn't do on my own. Because there is a version of you on the way that you have not met yet. Type in the comments, there is a future me on the way. Right now, you are operating out of what you think is the best version of yourself, your current level of faith, your current level of discipline, your current level of peace. But God is not done. There is a you coming that carries something you have never carried before, something powerful, something anointed, something no eye has seen and no ear has heard, because it was never meant to be discovered early. It was meant to be revealed at the appointed time. Verse 20 through 22 say that creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice, but it was subjected in hope, because creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay. The whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. I want you to sit with that image for a second, the pains of childbirth, not the pain of something dying, the pain of something being born. If what you're walking through right now feels heavy, feels tight, feels like pressure you can't explain, I want to suggest to you that it is not the pain of your life falling apart. It is the pain of something new trying to come through. And verse 23 says, even we ourselves, who have the Spirit as the firstfruits, groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption, the redemption of our bodies. Even the ones who are walking closest with God still feel the ache of waiting. That doesn't mean your faith is weak. It means you're human, and you're in the in-between, and the in-between is uncomfortable for everybody, no matter how strong their faith looks from the outside. I think about Joseph for a second, because his story has always spoken to me in seasons like this. Before Joseph ever wore the robes of authority in Egypt, he wore chains in a pit that his own brothers threw him into. Before the palace, there was a prison he didn't deserve to be in. And I imagine there were nights in that prison where Joseph wondered if the dream God gave him as a boy was ever going to come to pass, or if he had imagined the whole thing. But here's what I need you to catch. Every single thing Joseph walked through, the pit, the false accusation, the years forgotten in a cell, was not evidence that God had abandoned the dream. It was the process that prepared him to carry it. The pit didn't cancel the palace. It was the road to it. Some of you are in a pit season right now, and I need you to understand, a pit is not a grave. A pit is temporary. A pit has a bottom, and it has walls you can eventually climb. And there is a purpose being worked into you at the bottom of it that could not have been worked into you at the top. You are not stuck. You are being prepared. Now here's what I want you to grab hold of. God already has the structure laid out. He already has the plan drawn up. You are not waiting for God to figure out what to do with your life. You are waiting for the moment He has already appointed to unveil it. There's a difference between God still deciding and God already knowing, and you still catching up. You are catching up to a plan that was already finished before you were even born. Romans 8:28 says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." All things. Somebody type all things in the comments. Not some things, not the easy things. All things, the bumpy roads, the wrong connections, the seasons that felt like a complete waste of your time, the relationships that didn't work out, the doors that slammed shut in your face. God is not asking you to pretend those things didn't hurt. He's telling you He's going to take what looked like a mess and turn it into material for your testimony. Verse 29 tells us He knew us in advance and He chose us to become conformed to the image of His Son. That means this isn't random. You were chosen before you had done anything to earn it, and you were chosen for a purpose, to start looking like Jesus. Which means some of what you're walking through right now is not punishment, it's formation. It's the process of becoming someone who carries His character and not just His name. That word, conformed, matters. It doesn't mean God is trying to make you a copy of someone else, some generic version of a Christian you've seen before. It means He's shaping the specific version of you that was always meant to reflect Him, your personality, your gifts, your story, all of it, but carrying His character underneath it. That's why the process sometimes feels like loss before it feels like gain. Some things have to be released for the real you to have room to grow. Some relationships, some habits, some old identities you built to survive a season that's already over. They have to be let go of, not because they were worthless, but because they were never meant to be permanent. I think a lot of you are grieving versions of yourself. You thought you'd still be by now, plans that didn't pan out, timelines that got interrupted. I want to say gently, it's okay to grieve that, but don't let the grief convince you that what's coming is smaller than what you lost. Usually, it's not. Usually, what God is forming in the space where the old plan used to be is something you couldn't have designed on your own, because you didn't know yet who you were going to need to become in order to carry it. I know some of you are in a season of silence. I know what that feels like, the days where you pray and it feels like the ceiling is made of concrete, where you say, God, are you even listening? I'm talking, but is anybody answering? I'm not going to pretend that silence doesn't hurt. But silence is not the same as absence, and I need you to hold on to this. All things, even the silent days, are working together for your good, whether or not you can trace how yet. Sometimes God gets quiet, not because he's pulled away, because he's already given you the instruction and he's waiting to see if you'll be faithful with what you already know before he hands you the next piece. If he told you to forgive somebody and you haven't yet, that might be why it feels quiet. If he told you to let go of something and you're still gripping it, that might be why it feels quiet. I'm not saying that's true for every season of silence. Sometimes silence really is just a test of endurance with nothing left for you to do but trust. But it's worth asking, in the stillness, is there something I already know that I haven't obeyed yet? Sometimes the next word is waiting on the other side of the last one. And sometimes, honestly, the silence is simply because some things are being built in a place too deep for words to reach. Not everything God does in you needs your understanding in order to happen. Some of the most important growth in a person's life takes place below the surface, in the dark, in the root system, long before anything is visible above the ground. You don't have to understand the process for the process to be working. Here's the truth some of you need tonight. You can't see how this is going to work out. I'm not going to lie to you and say you should be able to, but God already sees how it's going to work. Isaiah tells us his thoughts are not our thoughts, and his ways are not our ways. And as high as the heavens are above the earth, so are his ways higher than ours. You will not be able to think your way into understanding this season. You were never meant to. You were meant to trust it. I want to speak to some specific people watching this right now, because I don't believe everybody watching is carrying the same thing. To the person believing for a financial breakthrough, the one doing the math at night, and it's still not adding up, God sees the sacrifices you've made that nobody else knows about. He sees the times you gave when you didn't have enough to give. Provision is coming, and it's coming in a way that's going to remind you it was never your own strategy that got you there. To the person believing for restoration in a relationship, a marriage that's strained, a family member who's drifted, a friendship that ended in silence, I want you to know God specializes in restoring what looked unrecoverable. That doesn't mean every relationship will be restored exactly how you're picturing it, but I believe healing is coming to your heart either way, whether the relationship comes back or whether God replaces what was lost with something even healthier. To the person believing for healing in your body, you've been tired of praying the same prayer over the same test results, over the same pain that won't go away. God has not stopped hearing that prayer. Just because the answer hasn't come yet, keep bringing it to him. Keep believing him for strength for today, even while you wait for full healing. To the person who doesn't even know what they're believing for anymore, who's just tired and unsure and going through the motions, God isn't frustrated with you for not having it all figured out. He just wants you to keep showing up, even confused, even exhausted. That still counts as faith. And to the person who feels like they've been forgotten in the waiting room, while everybody else's prayers seem to be getting answered around them, your turn is not being skipped. God is not working off a popularity contest. He's working off a purpose, and your purpose has its own timeline that was never meant to match anyone else's. And that's exactly why Proverbs 3:5 tells us to trust in the Lord with all our heart and lean not on our own understanding. A lot of you are trying to logic your way out of your situation. You're trying to plan your own exit strategy. And God is saying, I don't need your plan. I need you to follow mine. He's not asking for your blueprint. He's asking you to trust the one who already has the blueprint finished. So hear this clearly. Hold on. Don't give up. Don't let up. Don't let what you currently see convince you that God has forgotten what he promised, because you have not yet seen who you're going to become. You have not yet seen the lives you're going to touch. You have not yet seen what God is going to do in you and through you. Some of you have only put a toe in the water. You have not jumped in yet. And what's on the other side of that jump is going to change everything. Galatians 6:9 says, Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest, if we do not give up. That word weary is important, because it's not talking about people who quit loudly. It's talking about people who quietly get tired of doing the right thing when nothing seems to be happening. You keep showing up, you keep being honest, you keep forgiving, you keep working with excellence, and it feels like nobody's noticing, nothing's changing. God says, don't grow weary. At the proper time, not your time, his proper time, there's a harvest with your name on it. I want to speak to the part of you that's tired of doing right and still getting treated wrong. If they mistreated you, and you responded with integrity anyway, that matters to God even when it feels invisible to everyone else. He's not asking you to be perfect. He's asking you not to quit being who you're becoming just because someone else hasn't grown yet. I know some of you are tired in a specific way tonight. Not just physically tired, but tired of hoping. Tired of getting your expectations up and watching them fall short again. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from believing God for something over and over, season after season, and not yet holding it in your hands. I'm not going to tell you that exhaustion is a sin or that you're failing by feeling it. Even the most faithful people in Scripture got tired in the waiting. What I will tell you is that tired faith is still faith. You don't have to feel strong for your faith to count. You just have to keep choosing it, one day at a time, even on the days it feels more like a decision than a feeling. And I want to remind you that your current level of frustration is not a measurement of how far away your breakthrough actually is. Sometimes the closer you get to something, the harder the resistance feels, simply because there's more at stake, more being shaken loose, more old patterns being uprooted to make room for what's coming. Don't measure your distance from the promise by how hard right now feels. Some of the hardest weeks come right before the biggest shifts. And I have to warn you about something. Right about the time you're closest to the breakthrough, there's a voice that shows up and tells you it's not going to work. That voice will tell you to give up now, to stop wasting your time, to let go of the very thing you've been believing God for. Don't listen to it. That voice always gets loudest right before a shift, not after one. If you feel that pressure to quit right now, take that as a sign you might be closer than you think, not further away. That voice doesn't just say quit. It's more strategic than that. It says, look at everyone else who already has what you're waiting for. It puts comparison in front of you and tries to convince you that God is playing favorites, that other people's timelines prove something about your worth. Don't fall for it. Somebody else's harvest season is not a statement about your winter. Their yes doesn't mean your no. It just means you're not on the same calendar, and that was never supposed to bother you as much as it does. That voice also whispers exhaustion into faithfulness. It tells you that if it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to happen at all. It tries to convert your tiredness into evidence, as if being tired proves God has changed his mind. Being tired doesn't mean God forgot. It just means you're human, walking a process that was always going to cost you something. Tiredness is not a prophecy. Don't let it speak like one. And that voice will try one more thing. It'll try to make you feel foolish for still believing. It'll whisper that you look silly still holding on, still hoping, still expecting after all this time. I need you to reject that thought the second it shows up. There is nothing foolish about faith. The world may call it naive. Heaven calls it the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. You are not foolish for still believing. You are exactly who God is looking for, someone who didn't let delay talk them out of their destiny. Think about Jesus in the garden. He said, "Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me." He didn't pretend the moment wasn't hard. He was honest about the weight of it, but he didn't run from it either. He finished what he was sent to do, even when it cost him everything. And what came out of his obedience wasn't just his victory, it was salvation for everyone who would ever trust him after. Your obedience in this hard season is not just for you either. Somebody is going to be set free because you didn't quit. I also think about David, long before he ever wore a crown. He was anointed as king while he was still out in the fields tending sheep, still the youngest, still the one nobody in his own family thought to call in from the pasture when the prophet came looking. He was anointed, and then he went right back to the sheep. There was no throne waiting for him the next morning. There was a wilderness season instead, running from a king who wanted him dead, hiding in caves, surrounded by people who didn't understand him, waiting years between the promise and the palace. I want you to notice something about that gap. David didn't become king the day he was anointed. He became king the day God's timing finally lined up with the calling that had already been spoken over him years earlier. And in between those two moments, David wasn't wasting time. He was becoming the kind of man who could actually carry a kingdom, learning to trust God in the cave before he ever had to trust him on the throne. If you feel like you've been anointed for something but you're still out in the field, still waiting, still hiding in your own version of a cave, I want you to understand the anointing was real. The timing hasn't caught up yet. That's a very different thing than the promise being false. Ecclesiastes tells us we don't know which effort will succeed, whether this one or that one, or if both will do equally well. You don't always get to know in advance which act of faithfulness is the one that's going to break things open. So you keep sowing, you keep showing up. You keep being faithful in the small, unseen places, because you don't know which seed is the one that's about to become a harvest. I want to lead you in some declarations right now, because there is something about speaking truth out loud that steadies a spirit, even before the circumstances line up with it. Say these with me, quietly if you need to, or out loud if you're able to. I declare that what was meant to bury me is being used to build me. I declare that my current season is not my final season. I declare that the delay I've experienced is not a denial. It's a delay with a purpose I may not fully understand yet. I declare that the version of me that hasn't been revealed yet is already being formed, even in this waiting. I declare that I will not let comparison steal my peace, and I will not let exhaustion talk me out of my faith. I declare that the enemy's voice does not get the final say over my life. God's word does. I declare that all things, even the hard things, even the things that made no sense, are being worked together for my good. I declare that I am not who people said I was, and I am not even fully who I think I am yet. I am who God says I am, and He is still writing this story. Somebody needed to say those words out loud tonight, not because saying them changes God's mind, but because saying them changes yours. It aligns your mouth with your faith instead of your fear. So here's where I want to land this. There is a future version of you that has not been seen yet, not by the people who doubted you, not even fully by yourself. It is being formed right now, in the waiting, in the pressure, in the silence, in the doing good without applause. And there is a day appointed, closer than you think, when it's going to be revealed, not because you forced it, because you didn't quit. I want you to picture that day for a second. I want you to picture the morning you wake up and realize the weight you've been carrying isn't there anymore. I want you to picture the conversation where someone who watched your hardest season looks at you and can't quite believe how far you've come. I want you to picture yourself looking back at tonight, at this exact moment, and remembering it as the night something shifted, even though nothing around you had changed yet. That day is coming. Hold on to that image. Let it be the thing you return to the next time doubt tries to talk louder than faith. Until that day comes, here's your assignment. Not a complicated one, just a faithful one. Keep doing what's right even when it's not being rewarded yet. Keep showing up in prayer even on the days it feels one-sided. Keep believing even when the evidence hasn't caught up to your faith. Keep being kind to the people who haven't earned it. Keep sowing into the things that matter, even in seasons of lack. None of it is wasted. None of it is being overlooked. It is all being recorded, and it is all being worked into the harvest that's coming. I don't know everything you're walking through tonight. I don't know the specific mountain in front of you, the specific relationship, the specific fear that kept you up last night. But I know the one who does, and I know he hasn't changed his mind about you, not for 1 second. Not through any of it. So hold your head up, straighten your shoulders. Whatever tried to convince you tonight that you're finished, that you're too far behind, that this is just how your life is going to be, reject it. You are not finished. You are in process. And process, no matter how uncomfortable, always ends in revelation for the ones who don't quit. Type in the comments, "I will not quit." Say it like you mean it, because your breakthrough is listening for your decision, not just your prayer. If this word blessed you tonight, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with somebody who needs to hear it too. Because somebody in your life right now is exactly one word away from holding on a little longer. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next one.